7 smart Hollywood legends who lost fortunes to dumb scams. You won't believe they fell for it. These weren't struggling actors desperate for cash. These were smart, successful men, legends with decades of experience, trusted advisors, and millions in the bank who fell for scams so obvious, so ridiculous that you'd think they were plot points from bad movies. Fake cattle that never existed. Tax schemes a high schooler could see through. Family members stealing millions while living under the same roof. The kind of cons that make you wonder, how does someone worth tens of millions hand over everything to a stranger promising magic beans? In Hollywood's golden age and beyond, where everyone has an agent, a lawyer, and a business manager, these legends bypassed every safeguard. They trusted the wrong people, ignored red flags the size of billboards, and paid prices that would make anyone's jaw drop. Drop a comment and tell us which scam shocks you most. Let's start with number 7. Number 7. Kiefer Sutherland. Jack Bauer, the man who saved America from nuclear terrorism 24 times over. Kiefer Sutherland became one of television's highest-paid actors during the run of 24, earning millions per season. Son of legendary actor Donald Sutherland, an award-winning performer in his own right, he lost $869,000 investing in Mexican cattle that literally never existed. Here's what makes this one of the dumbest scam on the list. Sutherland wasn't some city boy who'd never seen a farm. He owned a ranch in Montana. He competed in rodeo competitions. He knew cattle, roping, ranching, because this was his actual hobby. If anyone should have been able to spot a cattle scam, it was Kiefer Sutherland. The story begins in 2006, when Sutherland was filming a cowboy movie. Through his financial advisors, he was introduced indirectly to Michael Wayne Carr, a steer roping promoter and cattle manager. Carr pitched a seemingly straightforward investment. Buy steers cheap in Mexico, sell them for profit in the United States. Classic agricultural arbitrage. On paper, it looked legitimate. Sutherland invested $550,000 in the first deal. Within 30 days, Carr wired back $685,000, a profit of $130,000. Sutherland was thrilled. His financial team was impressed. Everything checked out. This was the setup. The first investment was classic Ponzi scheme tactics. Give the mark a quick, substantial profit to build trust and set up the bigger score. In 2007, encouraged by his success, Sutherland went all in. He invested $869,000 in a second cattle deal. His financial team supposedly vetted and approved the investment. Sutherland never met Carr face-to-face, never spoke to him on the phone, never asked to see the cattle or visit the operations in Mexico. He just trusted the numbers from the first deal and assumed lightning would strike twice. The money vanished completely. No cattle, no records of purchases in Mexico, nothing. When Sutherland's team reached out to Carr for updates, they got excuses, then delays, then silence. Sutherland contacted authorities, and the San Joaquin County District Attorney's Office launched an investigation. What they uncovered was a sprawling fraud. Carr had been running the same scheme on multiple investors. A New Mexico couple had lost $177,000 in an identical scam. Prosecutors discovered that Carr never bought steers in Mexico ever. He had no operations, no facilities, no legitimate business. He was simply taking money from new investors and using it to pay off earlier investors, the textbook definition of a Ponzi scheme. He was also selling cattle that didn't belong to him, pocketing the proceeds. In January 2010, Carr was arraigned on 12 felony charges, 5 counts of grand theft, 3 counts of forgery, 2 counts of obtaining money by false pretenses, 1 count of embezzlement, and 1 count of falsifying corporate books. He faced 18 years in prison if convicted on all charges. In 2011, Carr pleaded guilty to 3 counts as part of a plea deal. He was sentenced to 7 years in prison and ordered to pay restitution to his victims. Whether Sutherland ever recovered any of his money remains unclear. He's never publicly discussed the case beyond confirming his cooperation with investigators. The irony is almost too perfect. Jack Bauer could stop nuclear terrorism, infiltrate terrorist cells, withstand torture, and save Los Angeles from catastrophe before breakfast. But Kiefer Sutherland couldn't spot a cattle scam. He owned a ranch, he competed in rodeo, he knew the cattle business inside and out, and he still handed over $869,000 for livestock that never existed to a man he never met based on 1 successful transaction. He never asked to see the cattle, never asked to visit the operations in Mexico, never questioned why the returns were so high. He just trusted the profit from the first investment. as proof the system worked. The case became infamous in Hollywood, proof that even the toughest guy on television can get taken by a con man with a convincing smile, a calculator, and patience enough to set the trap properly. Number 6. Burt Reynolds. The mustached sex symbol of the 1970s, the man who made Smokey and the Bandit a cultural phenomenon. At his peak, Burt Reynolds commanded $10 million per film and was Hollywood's biggest box office draw. So naturally, he invested millions in restaurants he never visited. Reynolds got convinced by business partners to pour his fortune into a chain of restaurants and nightclubs. The pitch was simple: put your name on it, let us handle the operations, watch the money roll in. Reynolds, riding high on his success, signed the checks without proper due diligence. He never actually visited most of the locations before investing. He just trusted the numbers his partners showed him on paper. The restaurants hemorrhaged money from day one. Bad locations, poor management, zero oversight. Reynolds kept pumping money in, convinced the next investment would turn things around. It never did. He also lost millions in failed real estate ventures, trusting advisors who were more interested in their commissions than his financial health. By 1996, Reynolds filed for bankruptcy, owing more than $10 million to creditors. The guy who was once Hollywood's biggest box office draw ended up auctioning off his personal belongings, including his Golden Globe Award, to pay debts from restaurants he never even ate at. Reynolds died in 2018 at age 82 from cardiac arrest, having rebuilt his career somewhat, but never fully recovering the fortune he'd lost to deals he should have walked away from. Number 5. Wesley Snipes. Blade, the vampire hunter who became one of the biggest action stars of the 1990s and early 2000s. At his peak, Wesley Snipes was earning more than $10 million per film, a martial artist and actor with the world at his feet. Then he met some guys who convinced him that paying taxes was optional. In the mid-1990s, Snipes encountered Eddie Ray Khan and Douglas Razile, prominent figures in the anti-tax movement. Khan ran an organization called American Rights Litigators, which promoted tax defier schemes, essentially conspiracy theories claiming that federal income tax was unconstitutional and therefore illegal. Snipes bought in completely. He stopped filing tax returns from 1999 through 2004. He filed fraudulent refund claims totaling $7.4 million for the years 1996 and 1997. He claimed to be a non-resident alien for tax purposes despite being born in Orlando, Florida. By the time federal prosecutors caught up with him, Snipes owed approximately $15 million in back taxes. He was indicted in 2006 on multiple counts of tax fraud. Snipes argued that he'd been given bad advice and didn't understand the legal implications, but prosecutors presented extensive evidence showing Snipes knew exactly what he was doing. He'd sent increasingly bizarre letters to the IRS using tax protester language, citing obscure legal theories that had been debunked in court repeatedly. The trial revealed just how deep Snipes had fallen into the conspiracy. He genuinely believed or claimed to believe that the federal government had no legal authority to collect income tax, that the entire system was a fraud, that he was standing up for constitutional principles. In 2008, he was convicted on 3 misdemeanor counts of failure to file tax returns. He was sentenced to 3 years in federal prison and began serving his sentence in 2010 at McKean Federal Correctional Institution in Pennsylvania. Snipes was released in 2013 and has since rebuilt his career to some degree, but he still owes the IRS millions in penalties and interest. The tax protester movement has ensnared many people over the years, but Snipes remains the most famous case, a cautionary tale about believing conspiracy theories over established law and trusting scammers who tell you what you want to hear. Number 4. Mickey Rooney, one of the last surviving stars of Hollywood's golden age, the kid who charmed America in the Andy Hardy series. Mickey Rooney's career spanned 9 decades, and by conservative estimates, he earned around $12 million during his lifetime, equivalent to over $150 million in today's money. He died nearly broke, with just $18,000 to his name. The culprit, his stepson, living under his own roof. Rooney married for the 8th time in 1978 to a woman named Jan Chamberlain. Jan's son, Mark Aber, gradually took over as Rooney's caretaker and manager. At first it seemed convenient, family looking after family, but Aber systematically isolated Rooney from his other children and took complete control of his finances. For years, Aber allegedly stole millions from Rooney's accounts, while the aging actor was forced to live on just $400 a week. According to Rooney's later testimony, Aber withheld food and medical care, treating the Hollywood legend like a prisoner in his own home. Meanwhile, Aber spent freely, using Rooney's money to fund his own lifestyle. In 2011, at age 90, Rooney did something remarkable. He testified before the Senate Special Committee on Aging, speaking publicly about elder abuse and financial exploitation. His testimony was heartbreaking and powerful. The court eventually granted a restraining order against Aber, and a settlement was reached, but by then, the damage was done. Rooney died in 2014 at age 93 from natural causes. His estate was worth just $18,000, a fraction of what he'd earned over nearly a century in show business. But his public testimony helped change California laws protecting the elderly from financial exploitation. The boy who once charmed millions ended his life by protecting others from the same fate he'd suffered. Number 3. Sammy Davis Jr., Mr. Wonderful, member of the Rat Pack alongside Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin. Sammy Davis Jr. was a legendary entertainer, singer, dancer, actor, comedian, a triple threat who commanded stages around the world. Over his career, he earned an estimated $50 million, a staggering sum for a performer of his era. He died nearly broke, having fallen for not one, not two, but 3 separate major scams. Davis was known for his extravagant spending and his generosity. He gave money to friends, causes, anyone who asked. But his downfall wasn't just spending, it was trusting the wrong people with investments that sounded too good to be true. Scam number 1 came in the late 1970s, an oil and gas venture. Davis was pitched on an oil drilling operation in Texas. The promoters promised huge returns from untapped oil fields. Davis invested hundreds of thousands of dollars. The operation was essentially fake, minimal actual drilling, maximum taking of investor money. Davis lost his entire investment when the scheme collapsed. Scam number 2 hit in the early 1980s, the DeLorean Motor Company. John DeLorean himself personally pitched Davis on investing in DMC, the company behind the iconic Gullwing sports car. Davis, dazzled by DeLorean's vision and celebrity status, invested significant money. In 1982, the company went bankrupt after DeLorean was arrested in an FBI cocaine sting operation. Every dollar Davis put in vanished. But scam number 3 was the cruelest. Like Willie Nelson, Davis was sold fraudulent tax shelter schemes during the 1980s. These compounded his financial problems exponentially. By the late 1980s, Davis owed the IRS millions in back taxes. He had to sell his Hillcrest mansion to pay mounting debts. Even as throat cancer ravaged his body, Davis continued performing, driven by the need to pay bills. He toured while dying because he had no choice. The entertainment legend who'd performed for presidents and kings ended his life scrambling to cover debts from scams he should have seen coming. Davis died in May 1990 at age 64 from throat cancer. His estate was in financial chaos, with creditors lining up to claim whatever was left. He once famously said, "I didn't lose my money, I spent it." But the truth is darker. He trusted the wrong people repeatedly, and each time it cost him millions. 3 separate scams, 3 devastating losses, and a legacy that should have been defined by his incredible talent instead became a cautionary tale about the price of trust. Number 2. Billy Joel, the Piano Man, one of the best-selling music artists of all time, with hits that defined generations. By the 1980s, Billy Joel was at the absolute peak of his career, selling out arenas, topping charts, earning millions per year, and his brother-in-law was robbing him blind. Joel married Elizabeth Weber in 1973. 7 years later, in 1980, Elizabeth's brother Frank Weber became Joel's manager. It seemed like a smart move. Keep it in the family, someone you can trust. Weber took control of Joel's finances, his investments, his touring revenue. Everything went through Frank. For nearly a decade, Weber systematically embezzled money. He created shell companies and fake investments. He bought expensive properties using Joel's money, but put them in Weber's own name. He negotiated contracts that heavily favored Weber's management company while shortchanging Joel. The entire operation was a masterclass in how to steal from someone who trusts you completely. Joel, focused on his music and touring, didn't notice. The checks cleared, money appeared to be flowing, and his brother-in-law assured him everything was being handled professionally. Why would he question it? The discovery came in 1989 when Joel finally looked at the books. The discrepancies were staggering. He filed a $90 million lawsuit against Weber, triggering a legal battle that lasted years and involved multiple countersuits. The timing couldn't have been worse. Joel was simultaneously divorcing Elizabeth, making the betrayal both personal and professional. After years of litigation, Joel recovered only about $8 million of the estimated $30 million Weber had taken. The rest was gone, spent, or hidden in ways that couldn't be traced. Joel later said the experience taught him a hard lesson: never mix business with family. Blood doesn't guarantee honesty, and sometimes the people closest to you are the ones with the best opportunity to steal. Joel is still touring today at 75, one of the most beloved performers in music history. But a significant portion of his 1980s earnings, money from some of his biggest hits, went into his brother-in-law's pockets instead of his own. Number 1. Willie Nelson. The outlaw country legend, red-headed stranger, an American icon who's been making music for over 7 decades. By the 1980s, Willie Nelson was earning millions from concerts, albums, and endorsements. He was one of the most successful country artists in history. Then his accounting firm sold him illegal tax shelters that triggered the IRS to seize everything he owned. Nelson's finances were managed by Price Waterhouse, one of the most prestigious accounting firms in the world. They convinced him to invest in tax shelters, legal-sounding schemes designed to reduce his tax burden. On paper, these looked legitimate. They came from a major firm, were presented as standard practice for high earners, and promised significant savings. There was just one problem: they were completely fraudulent. The IRS audited Nelson and determined that the tax shelters were illegal schemes. In November 1990, they hit him with a tax bill for $16.7 million. When Nelson couldn't pay immediately, the IRS didn't negotiate. They seized almost everything he owned: his houses, his cars, his recording equipment, his master tapes. Personal possessions were auctioned off to the highest bidder. The IRS was ruthless, and Nelson watched decades of his life's work get carted away to pay a debt created by his own accountants. Price Waterhouse eventually settled their liability in the matter, acknowledging their role in the scheme, but that didn't make Nelson's tax bill disappear. After legal battles and negotiations, the IRS agreed to settle for $6 million. Still, that was $6 million Nelson didn't have. So he did what Willie Nelson does. He made music. He released an album called The IRS Tapes Who'll Buy My Memories, with proceeds going directly to his tax debt. He toured constantly, sometimes over 200 shows a year, grinding it out to pay back the government. By 1993, he'd paid off the entire debt. Nelson is still touring today at 91 years old. He became a successful cannabis entrepreneur and rebuilt his fortune. But the fact that a major accounting firm, Price Waterhouse, not some fly-by-night operation, sold him blatantly illegal tax schemes shows how even professionals can be scammers. Nelson trusted the experts, and the experts betrayed him just as thoroughly as any con artist. The resilience of Willie Nelson isn't just about music, it's about a man who lost everything to fraud and fought his way back, one concert at a time. That's the real legacy here. So there you have it, 7 Hollywood legends who had everything: success, money, advisors, and still got swindled out of millions. These weren't complicated financial instruments or sophisticated cyber schemes. These were obvious cons: fake cattle, illegal tax shelters, family members with their hands in the cookie jar. What connects them all? Trust without verification. The bigger the name, the more people want to separate them from their money, and sometimes the fame itself makes them easier targets. These men succeeded in the most competitive industry on earth, but when it came to protecting their fortunes, they made mistakes that would make a teenager shake their head. Which scam shocked you most? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you found these stories as unbelievable as we did, hit that like button and subscribe for more Hollywood history you won't find anywhere else. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.